Stream has started. Okay, members, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regulatory section of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Can I please remind you that when speaking into your microphone, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screen so the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed will not hear anything you say. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Okay, members, we'll go on to agenda item 1, apologies. I have apologies from the chair, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Armstrong is getting married this Friday. So I think he's kind of busy preparing for his and his fiance's big day. I know on behalf of the committee, would all wish them all the best for Friday and the honeymoon after. So that's we'll not minute that, Councillor Kennedy. And then Councillor Dowd and Councillor McGowan should be joining us for the 4 o'clock session. Is there any other apologies from the floor just at this time? No, not seeing any lights on. Remember, members, we are back to hybrid, so there may be some people joining us on Zoom, although there's none at the minute. Okay, declarations of interest, members. We'll just take them as they come, if there's any at the minute. Okay, and then we're on to agenda item 3, report from the head of planning. Agenda item 3.1, advance notice of listing for Marlborough House, and I'll bring in Conor Gallagher, Senior Planning Officer, Local Development Team, to present this item. And Colin, you're on Zoom there, so just come in whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. This item 3.1, so this item for decision, it's the advance notice of listing of Marlborough House in Central Way, Craigavon. And the decision required is that members approve the draft response to the Department for Communities as outlined in the appendix. The Department for the Community.
Go ahead, Colin.
Sorry, Chair. The Department for Communities wrote to the Council on the 13th of September seeking views on the proposed listing of Marlborough House, and a copy of which can be found in the appendix. As the 6-week timeframe for response closed on the 25th of October, planning officer sought an extension of time to respond. The AFC agreed to the period for comments from the Council to be extended until 5th of November. The listing of Marlborough House is being considered under Section 81 of the Planning Act, Northern Ireland 2011. Under this legislation, the Department, when compiling a list, must consult with the appropriate council and the Historic Buildings Council. When considering whether to include a building in the list, the Department may take into account the building itself, the extent to which its exterior contributes, its architectural or historic interest. DFC has assessed the merits of listing Marlborough House against the criteria set out in their publication of 2019 criteria for the scheduling of historic monuments and the listing of buildings of special architectural or historic interest. In this case, Marlborough House significant criteria include, under architectural interest, style, proportion, ornamentation, plan form, structural systems, innovatory qualities, alterations detracting from the building, quality and survival of interior, and the setting. In terms of historic interest, authenticity, historic importance, local interest, authorship. DAFC, in their survey, described Marlborough House as a robust, cuboid 7-storey, modern style office block built between 1973 and 77, and it was part of the initial development of the urban core of the new city of Craigavon. While the building is relatively unchanged, it is noted that detailing in the foyer and stairwell have been altered. The Department advises that Marlborough House was designed by the Craigavon Development Commission's architects and indicate that it is one of the best preserved examples of large-scale 1970s modernism in Northern Ireland. The building is one of the most prominent single components of what was originally planned as the town centre of Craigavon, and it remains the only part of the first phase of that vision to have survived in its original form. The AFC considers an individualistic structure and indeed is a memorable local landmark. Members are advised the building is located within the town centre boundary of Craigavon Central Area, as designated in the Craigavon Town Centre Boundaries and Retail Designations Plan. A planning history search has identified no relevant planning histories on the site, while a constraint search has identified that the site is located within an area prone to surface water flooding. As Council's views have been sought regarding the proposed listing, a draft response is attached in the appendices. This includes the planning status of the site, the constraints affecting surrounding lands, and advising that while Council has no objections to the proposed listing, it will be supportive of the property owner if they were to raise any concerns in relation to the proposed listing of this property. And there's two appendices. There's the advance notice of listing and survey report from DFC, and there's the draft response to DFC. And we've just put forward the recommendation that members approve the draft response to the Department for Communities as outlined in the appendix.
Thank you, Colin, for that presentation. I suppose I would actually have some negative views on this, but I see a number of lights on, so maybe I'll bring in those speakers first. Councillor Kevin Savage.
Chair, thank you very much for that, me and Connor. Thank you very much for your report. Chair, I do remember that we had agreed that form of words for listings when they came before the council a few years ago. But in this case, I think we need to be a bit more robust and actually asking that the listing of this building is rejected, because if this building's listed, it has the potential to hamstring not only this council, but any development of that land for years and years to come. DOF are getting rid of the building for a reason. You know, it's not fit for purpose. They're decanting everybody from it. So they've obviously done a feasibility study that it's not worth trying to upgrade or retrofit it to make it fit for the staff in it. If it is listed, it will certainly not be sold on the open market. Nobody will want to buy it. It will remain empty on potentially a hub for anti-social activities in the area. So I would propose that our response is a lot more robust, and that this council asks the AFC to reject the listing status of this building, and would draft a letter to reflect that. So I would just be interested in views of other members, but I would propose that at this time, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. I would completely agree with that, both in terms of the short-term and significant long-term reality of what could occur if this is listed. It's quite frustrating in that we're only asked to give responses on special architectural or historical aspects of this, but I don't think those other things you described can be ignored regarding this site. Alderman Wilson, you've relied on next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I couldn't agree more with Councillor Savage, and would second his proposal, absolutely. I don't think there would be one tier shed of that building, you know, if there's no one in it, obviously, ended up in a dusty pile and was taken away and buried somewhere. I just can't see the reasoning behind this. But once again, this committee is getting a letter before it from this department saying that they're just going to list this, or it appears that that's going to be the case. And I just think it's just completely the wrong decision for this site, just given where it is. And, you know, it's in an economic area there in Craigavon, and as Councillor Savage has said, I mean, it's just going to totally limit, you know, for instance, if that's up for sale and it's listed, and if we're going to run a mile from taking that on, you know, there are issues with the building. We've been in it, you know, a number of times. You know, you can see it quite clearly. I just can't see why, you know, it's just going to destroy any opportunity for that site, which is a real shame. But we're here again with the same situation. They do it with older buildings where elderly people are living. They put these listings on. There's no, as we've clearly found out by querying these people, there's no talking to them in that respect. they don't take on board the fundamental concerns of people. And it's not about the building, it's about the people. You know, it is about human beings. Yeah, we'll have buildings designed in such a way, but they're designed by people and they're lived in by people, they're occupied by people. Yet people seem to be the last thing on the NIE's mind in this respect, or the Historic Environment Division's mind. I can't understand that. It's like, pardon the pun, beating your head off a brick wall when you're dealing with that sort of issue. How can it appear to be a good idea to list that building? And I think, you know, I would definitely support Councillor Savage in his approach, and, you know, even a discussion with these people. I can't understand how that is, you know, appears to be a good idea. I can't.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. So we have a proposal there from Councillor Kevin Savage, seconded by Alderman Wilson, that a response is formulated to go back in terms of this consultation response, highlighting all of the sort of the agricultural and historic reasons why it should not be listed, and expanding on some of the points there about huge negative connotations in the future regarding economic interests for that. I know in this response it only talks about, you know, those architectural and historic interests, but given the huge significant I suppose potential of that side, if it did become you know, potentially up for sale, I don't know why it'd be worthwhile raising it to the attention of whoever the relevant minister is as well, because obviously this is maybe a small decision within a small team here, which could have maybe tens of multiple millions of pounds negative impact in this area, and I don't think that can be really covered in a response as opposed to a consultation as such. So I don't know if you want to come in there, Colin, in terms of obviously the proposal by Councillor Savage and Alderman Wilson, if you sort of understand, you know, the sort of intent there from what the remarks are saying, and whether there's an option there to bring it sort of to the attention of the relevant minister as well, or what do you think about that? So I'll bring you in, Colin, if you want to, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alderman and Councillor Savage. Yes, the Planning Department are content to amend our response to reflect the issues raised, and we certainly will include that in an amended response to DAFC.
Okay, thank you, members. And members, you content that it sort of brought the attention of whoever the relevant minister is in due course. So, okay, so we're all content with the proposal from Councillor Savage and Alderman Wilson that we amend the response to DSA accordingly, and also a separate response just to notify the minister of, I suppose, the contribution at today's committee. All agreed, members? Any other comments, sir? Okay, we're all agreed. Oh, Damien, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Chair, would you like us to copy the response to DFC to the DFC minister, or do you want two separate letters to issues, just to see clarification on that point?
Yes, if it's sent, I suppose it will be valid. Again, there's more, for my own mind, I know there's points that would relate to more architectural stuff that maybe HED would be more interested in, and then the economic thing, you know, when you have the minister there, is that sort of wider portfolio think. If the response is both things, but you don't want, you know, the economic stuff to be ignored in a HED response, and vice versa. So it's whatever you think, whether two responses would have more impact. I would be easy. I don't know what, if you want to come in.
Yeah, I suppose as the minister for DFC, that minister is only going to take account of what he's required to take account of here under the legislation, which is issues around the architectural and historic significance. So I think if we are going to write to the minister, it would be better to focus on those particular issues rather than wider issues around the economic considerations, Chair.
Thank you, Damon. Just a couple of lights on Councillor Savage.
Thanks, Chair. And just to muddy the waters a bit more, would we see ways contacting DOF as well as the owners? I know they've probably been consulted as well, but to ask if they could possibly copy us into their response and outline our concerns as well, maybe, you know, because they're the current owners of the building.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. I think that would be, you know, appropriate, that we're all aware of what each other is saying regarding this one. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, you know, if we're talking about the executive and storm, they've probably a degree of latitude in terms of looking at the wider issues with a chat with finance department, and it's just really teasing out what this is going to mean economically. I think whilst we're talking about architecturally, I think economically, this committee deals with economics at times that where those views disagree with maybe a decision that officers are presenting for a number of reasons. So I think definitely, ministerially, there needs to be a discussion on this because it has implications across departments, and I think they'll want to know about them.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. I think that's a good point, just because I suppose the scale of potential projects or project on the site could mean it's cross-cutting in some way. So I think take from that what you will, Damien, if sort of you're content with the approach.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, absolutely. Happy to be guided by members in this. So we will then amend the response to reflect members' comments, copy it to the DFC Minister, and then write separately to the DOF Minister around the wider social economic considerations. If members are content with that, happy to proceed. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Damien. You're all agreed with that approach outline, seeing general agreement. Okay, so that's item 3.1. So on to another advance notice of listing, staying with Colin, this time for a listing of a stench pipe in Ramore. So Colin, I'll take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Right, so this is item 3.2, and the item for decision is an advance notice of listing of a stench pipe at Mossfield Road in Dromore. We'll maybe explain it later, but just up front, a stench pipe basically acts as a vent for a sewer to release odours. And this is a historic one. The decision required, it's recommended members approve the draft response to the Department for Communities as outlined in the appendix. So the Department for Communities wrote to the Council on the 13th of September, seeking views on the proposed listing of a stench pipe at Mossfield Road, Dromore. And a copy of that can be found in the appendices. As the 6-week time frame for response was closed on the 25th of October, officers from the Council sought an extension of time to respond. DFC agreed, and that was extended until the 5th of November. The listing of the stench pipe is being considered under Section 81 of the Planning Act, and the Department, when compiling a list, must consult with the appropriate council and the Historic Building Council. When considering whether to include a building structure in a list, the Department may take into account the building structure itself, the extent to which its exterior contributes to the architectural or historic interest, and the desirability of preserving the building or structure. DFC has assessed the merits of listing the stench pipe against its criteria set out in the May 29 document, criteria for the scheduling of historic monuments and the listing of buildings of special architectural or historic interest. In this case, the criteria they suggest would be architectural interest, would be style, proportion, and ornamentation. In relation to historical interest, be authenticity, age, rarity, and social, cultural, or economic importance. DFC in their survey in the appendices described the stench pipe as a tall, slim cast iron pipe resembling a street lamp. The pipe is believed to have been placed here approximately around 1906 as a vent for a sewer, hence the name stench or stink pipe. DFC that the pipe may only be one of 2 intact examples of such pipes in Northern Ireland. And members are advised that the site is located within the settlement development limit of Dromore and is located within an area of archaeological potential, as defined in the Banbridge, Newry and Mourne Area Plan 2015. A planning history search has been carried out and identified no relevant planning histories on the site. As Council's views have been sought regarding the proposed listing, a draft response is attached in the appendix. This includes the planning status of the site, the constraints affecting the surrounding lands, and advising that while the council has no objections to the proposed listing, it would be supportive of the property owner if they were to raise any concerns in relation to the proposed listing of this property. And there's details in the appendix in relation to the advance notice of listing and survey report from DFC, and also the draft response to DFC. And we have a recommendation that members approve the draft response to the Department for Communities as outlined in the appendix. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. We should see it all at this committee. So what's your view on stench pipes? No responses. Happy to go ahead with that draft response. Any proposer or seconder? Or proposed by Alderman Wilson, seconded by Alderman Kennedy. Okay. Thank you, Colin, for presenting those items. Next, we're on to item 3.1, which is just an update on, it's an information update on update from planning caseloads. We'll just hand over to Damien Mulligan, Head of Plan, to present this item.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon again, members. Just a brief update on planning caseload, members. So you'll see from the report before you, the number of decisions issued during the month of September was 119 by the department. Number of planning applications received during the same period was 64, which means the number of live applications in the system at the minute is 748. Now that is a significant reduction, members, as you'll see from where we were at the beginning of the business year. So we've come down by 235 applications since the beginning of the business year. So certainly a downward trend in applications numbers coming in. But we'll continue to monitor that because it could actually be a temporary matter, but we'll obviously monitor that, keep members updated. Number of call-in requests during September was 4, bringing the total year to date to 16. And then having regard to the Q2 enforcement report, you'll see, members, we currently have 401 live enforcement cases. Happy to take any questions or queries, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Any questions or queries on that, members? Content to note. Okay, we're content to note that for now. Thank you, Damien, for presenting that report. Okay, members, we're on to agenda item 4, which is a report from Head of Building Control. Starting off with the decision item 4.1, street name report for Gillis Business Park, and hand over to Tom Lavery, Head of Building Control, to present this item. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Item 4.1, members, is a request for naming of a commercial development consisting of 5 commercial units in the former Gillis Yard and Lockall Road in Armagh, and details are in Appendix 1. The applicant's preferred name for this development is Gillis Business Park, and the applicant's main reason is the preferred name is that they feel it appropriate to use the historic name Gillis. The yard is known locally as Gillis Yard, which is associated with a row of houses now vacant called Gillis Row. So officers assessed and deemed the proposal is compliant with the Council's policy, and therefore the recommendation is for members to consider approval of the name Gillis Business Park for this development. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions or queries on this one, members? Not seeing any lights on or hands up. Okay, members, this is a decision item. So is there any proposals for the recommendation proposed by Alderman Wilson, seconded by Councillor Donnelly? For that name, Gillis Business Park. We're all agreed, members? Okay, we're all agreed. Staying with you, Tom, for just an information item or update on building regulation and property certificate workloads.
Thank you, Chair. This is just to keep members up informed of the workload undertaken by the department during the first 6 months of this financial year. And again, as noted in Appendix 2, in the first 6 months, we've received just over 1,400 building regulation applications, with a notional construction investment of just under 108 million. We've also carried out just over 7,640 site inspections and undertaken 976 plan assessments and issued a total of 1,343 statutory notices. The department also continued to deliver the Council's property certificate function for the conveyancing of properties across the borough. In the last 6 months, we have received and administered 1,858 new applications, and issued 1,870 certificates to solicitors and agents relating to property sales. Thank you, Chair. This is for information for members, but I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, members, any questions or queries for Tom? Okay, we're just content to note. Okay, happy to note. Thanks, Tom, for presenting those reports. Okay, members, on to agenda item 5, correspondence. There is no correspondence. On to agenda item 6, which is confidential report of a proposing or seconded to go into confidential business, proposed by Councillor Kevin Savage, seconded by Alderman Kennedy. Okay, members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, exempt information, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the ICT officers to please turn off the live feed and confirm to me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? We're back in business here. We're back in business. Okay, members, on the agenda item 8, any other business? There is no any other business. So we're in about 15 minutes. We'll come back about 4:05. We'll start on the plan applications. Want to pause the live feed until then, ICT? Stream is now back up and running. Okay, members, we're now back up and running here. So this is agenda item 7, applications for planning permission to be considered by the committee. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the planning section of the hybrid meeting of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee. Can I ask everyone to please mute their microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself? For those of you who are physically in the council chamber, can I please remind you that when speaking into your microphone, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screens so the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed or via Zoom will not hear anything you have to say. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Also, during the course of this meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee of Planning Officers, applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. In doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note that councillors will not reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused, or deferred until the debate on the application has concluded. Okay, members, we're just waiting on a couple of people to come in for an Appendix 1. So until then, we'll just move on to Appendix 2. It's application number 808 2023 2780/F, Rich Hills Women's Institute. Just confirm everyone's here who needs to be in the chamber, yeah? Yeah. Okay, members, I'm going to hand over in the first instance to Trudy Chapman, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Oh, so apologies. I need to bring in Alderman Wilson firstly.
Yeah, thank you. It was just to note that I called in the application and then I'm going to be speaking in support of the applicants. Do I need to go up or can I do it from here? Do I need to go up? Yeah.
Up he goes, the nods I'm getting there, Alderman Wilson. So there you go. We're kicking you out here. Okay, yeah, you're in your seat there. So again, we'll just hand over to Trudy there. Where are you? Let's see what. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission to replace 4 upper floor windows at 43A Main Street, Rich Hill, and is before you this evening as it was called in by Alderman Wilson. Firstly, can I draw your attention to refusal reason 2? Officers would seek to make a minor amendment to the wording of this so that it would read as the proposed development is contrary to paragraph 6.18 and 6.19 of the Strategic Plan and Policy Statement for Northern Ireland, and policy BH12 of Plan and Policy Statement 6, Plan on Archaeology and the Built Heritage. And then we're going to include on section 104 of the Planning Northern Ireland Act 2011, in that it would fail to preserve or enhance the character, appearance and setting of Rich Hill Conservation Area, in that the proposed materials do not respect the characteristics of adjoining buildings in the area, and it does not conform to the guidance set out in Rich Hill Conservation Area Guide, Rich Hill, a Conservation Village. Number 43A has a Women's Institute meeting hall on the ground floor and an apartment above. It is the windows of the front elevation of the apartment that this application relates to. The windows were previously timber sliding sash, which were painted white, but these were replaced with white PVC windows in late 2022. The WI now seek to replace these unauthorised PVC windows with new PVC windows, which would include some traditional detailing. The application site is located within the settlement limit of Rich Hill and within Rich Hill Conservation Area. The site is also located opposite a row of 8 listed buildings. HED were consulted in relation to the potential impact on the setting of these listed buildings, and in accordance with section 91 of the Planning Act, and have advised in their opinion the proposal fails to comply with policy BH11 of PPS 6. As the proposal fails to make use of traditional or sympathetic building materials and would therefore adversely affect the setting of the listed buildings. Officers are also of the opinion the proposal fails to comply with policy DES 2 of the Planning Strategy for Rural Northern Ireland, in that the materials proposed are not sensitive to the character of the surrounding area. The host building is located within Rich Hill Conservation Area and has therefore been assessed against policy BH12 of PPS 6 and the guidance contained in the Rich Hill Conservation Area Guide. The proposal is considered to fail policy BH12 on the grounds that it does not preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the area, and the materials of the proposal does not respect the characteristics of the adjoining area. nor does it conform with the guidance set out in the conservation area. Members are advised that the conservation area guide contains guidance specifically in relation to Rich Hill Conservation Area. The document is very clear in relation to window design and materials, and it states replacement or new windows should always be timber construction. The use of PVC for windows will not be permitted. Where the proposed changes are to be seen from the street, the design guidance should be faithfully followed. The character of the village would suffer profoundly if windows and doors were to be widely replaced with unsuitable modern counterparts. And it goes on to say that replacement or new windows should always be of timber construction, painted with opaque gloss, never varnish or stain. They can be double glazed and be of sash or casement type, but the use of aluminium or PVC for windows will not be permitted. Members are advised that officers met with the applicants and Alderman Wilson during the processing of the application and also agreed to meet on site, and indeed officers did meet with Alderman Wilson on site. Officers are also aware that a meeting between the applicants and HED was held at the request of William Irwin MLA. In addition, officers also met with representatives of the Rich Hill Building Preservation Trust who have objected to the proposal. Notwithstanding these meetings, HED's comments and the assessment of the application by officers remained the same. Members are advised that one letter of objection was received during the processing of the application, and this has been summarised and considered in the report already circulated. And that HED were consulted and commented that the proposal failed policy. Therefore, officers recommend that the application be refused for the reasons set out in the report. And I'll just take you through the slides. So this is our site location. So we're just at the top of Main Street. And this is within the general area. Next slide, please. This is an aerial photograph showing the site within the wider area. Next slide, please. So this is Rich Hill Conservation Area. As you can see, our application site is pretty much in the centre of the conservation area. Next slide, please. And this shows the list of buildings. So opposite our site, every one of those houses with the dot, or sorry, buildings with the dot is listed bar one, which was the old police station. And the next slide, please. So this was the existing elevation as it is. And the next one, please, shows our proposed elevation with amended windows to the top floor. Our next slide, please. So this photograph is taken from Main Street looking towards the application site, and the next slide should highlight the 4 windows that the application relates to. Our next slide, please. This is taken then from outside the hall looking back towards the list of buildings on the opposite side of the road. Next slide, please. So this is a street view image of the application site from April 2009. So they would have been the original windows at that time. And then the next one is a street view image from July 21. So we know that the windows were replaced with PVC in October 22. So again, these ones should be the original timber windows. The next slide, please. Now, this is actually an image that I've taken from the Ulster Architectural Heritage website. In 2019, Rich Hill actually won awards for the heritage work in the village, and this was the image that the Ulster Architectural Heritage used for the website. So it just shows you that they thought that this row of buildings was of such importance that they used that particular image. The next slide, please. So this is zoomed in images from the timber windows back in 2021 to the current PVC windows that are currently on the site. So you'll see that there's an obvious difference between them, with the current PVC windows being of much bulkier frame. They also don't have any of the historic features that the previous wooden windows had. And the next slide, I think this one, no, that's us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trudy, for that presentation. Okay, members, we now have a number of representations for people to the committee. We'll just take them one at a time here. We're going to start with Alderman Gareth Wilson to make a representation in support of the application. Alderman Wilson, you have 5 minutes. Obviously, the time's up in front of you there. I'm going to bring you in, and then the clock will begin to count down whenever you start.
Okay, members, thank you. And it's not often I'm up in this position, but this is one I feel quite strongly about, and it's sort of been an issue we've encountered now and again in committee where consultees and various other parties have come in with quite pointed views on what I believe are very, very minor issues in terms of the greater good of a particular project or a particular area or a particular organisation. And in my mind, this is definitely one of those cases. And I would say Rich Hill Women's Institute, who've got to know very well, have acted, at all times with integrity. I think that's important to say at the start. They're a very valued and important asset to the community, and they operate entirely as volunteers. The building they reside in, as far as I'm aware, isn't listed. And that's important in understanding how we've arrived at this particular point at committee today. However, as has been outlined, it does lie within a conservation zone, but it isn't unique in terms of having a particular fabric on the building in a conservation zone. There are many others. Armagh, different towns and villages across ABC have similar situations in existence without the type of feedback that we've got on this one. And I suppose just looking at the area, there are housing executive properties just to the right of this building, and they have simple white framed windows as well, nothing intricate or elaborate in that front, and that is the building directly beside this one. There are a number of other residential properties up in the square that have PVC windows. So I want to just be clear to you as a committee, don't be under the impression that this property stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, one of the images there I felt showed it quite clearly, just in regards to how unnoticeable this is to the average passerby in the street. But I will say I do want to pay tribute, and I know a couple of the gentlemen are here today, to the Preservation Trust and the Improvement Committee in the village. I fully understand their position and their reason for speaking today. However, as a public representative and someone who always likes to find a solution, I do feel that this issue is one that is easily resolved without further major financial implications for Rich Hill WI. The reasons were put in, or the windows were put in the first place, was purely for comfort, respect for the person on the first floor as a living space. And the ladies did seek to look after their building. It wasn't listed, but they're very, very committed to, I've been in it, they're very committed to keeping it in tip-top shape for the purposes of the WI for many years to come. And that's been very evident by their approach to, the whole scheme that was in Rich Hill. They've worked well with that scheme. The bottom floor window, as you've seen in your presentation there, is of a sliding sash nature, but the ladies just didn't feel that that was, something that was going to be required for the top floor. There was never an approach by Rich Hill WI to do anything to undermine what has been done in the village so far. And this is, as I've said, really easily verified by you as committee members, just looking at the pictures and looking at the locality and looking at the buildings that are, in very, very close proximity. I think it's interesting that from the slide, none of the dots for listed buildings are on the same side as the WI building resides on. I think that's an important observation as well. I personally feel the application represents a very fair and reasonable approach, and I would urge you that it is well within your scope to turn around this application for the benefit of Rich Hill WI and in recognition of the really important work that they do in our local village in Rich Hill. And I would just reiterate, at no stage did the ladies set out to end up before this committee today. As I say, it's jam in Jerusalem, and I've had a number of other very nice scones and tarts and different things in Rich Hill over the years, and they're very supportive of all the events in the village. I couldn't speak highly enough of them as a group in our community, and I hope that is useful in your deliberations today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. You're well within your time there. Next up, we're on to Brenda Chafe from Rich Hill Women's Institute to make a representation and support of the application. Brenda, yourself and your colleagues are very welcome here this afternoon. You have 3 minutes. When you start to speak, the clock will begin to count down, and I'll hand over to yourself then now. So,
okay. Firstly, may we thank Alderman Wilson for calling in this application and also the Council Chamber for affording us the opportunity to put forth Rich Hill WI points in respect of the current impasse relating to the planning application LA08 2023-2780 ADF. Read the proposed replacement windows for first floor on front elevation of 43A Main Street, Rich Hill, Armagh. Where to begin? This action was initiated following one objection to the PVC windows from an unknown source out of a village population of circa 3,000 persons. On the basis this does not conform to the Rich Hill Conservation Area Guide and detracts from the surrounding buildings. As an organisation having contributed to and enhancing village life for many women in both Rich Hill and other close environs over the past 75 years and supporting other village activities on a charitable basis, we are extremely saddened. It has caused us much distress that we appear to have been singled out. That is why we have respectfully contested this decision since May 2023 and let it be known that other buildings in the vicinity of listed buildings are of modern construction, not in Irish Street or Tandragee Street, but because no objections were raised within the given time frame, they went ahead unchallenged. On the other hand, small windows on the upper floor of the house owned by the WI since 1952, which the deeds do not specify as listed, are receiving undue attention. Yes, we put in PVC windows. Yes, they are on the front of the building. However, unless you were purposely looking for any difference, they go unseen. That said, as the issue has been raised and objected to, Rich Hill WI have admitted their unwitting error at time of installation. Hence the reason for this new application to refit UPVC sash windows with horns so that they would maintain the visual importance of the area. Whilst moving with modern times, bringing benefit to the tenant of the flat with eco-friendly windows to retain heat and provide soundproofing from the heavy flow of traffic. As this has been done in Ogle Street in Armagh, we cannot see why objections from HED insist on replacement or new windows should always be of timber construction, especially as we are not listed. In conclusion, we would reiterate our love for the village we live in all its aspects, from the history of the people gone before and now, the architecture we are blessed to be surrounded by. Over the years, we have tried to do our bit for the community inclusion. However, the angst endured because of this unresolved discourse has left us.
Apologies, Brenda. We're just ran out of time. However, members of the committee are able to ask you questions so on throughout the debate on this application. Okay, members. Last up, we have John Briggs and Jim Spears, MBE from Rich Hill Preservation Trust, to make a representation and objection to the application. Gentlemen, you're very welcome. You have 3 minutes in total. I don't know, do one of you intend to speak to a time? So John, okay, John, you got the full 3 minutes. The timer's up in front of you. I'll hand over to yourself and you can start.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for this opportunity to make representations this afternoon. Our first point is that we agree with the professional planning decision. We're happy with the views that were taken by the professional planners. We note at the end of the considerations that they indicate that the property secured funding from Armagh City and District and Craigavon Borough Council from the Heritage Lottery for repairs that were undertaken at that time. £84,420 grant was given at that time. I note that they say that this grant is not a material planning consideration or is not a material in the assessment of the planning application. And I understand that. However, I would make the point and submit that the thinking and the concept and the principles behind that grant are important. In the late 1990s, a survey of the village was carried out. It's actually carried out door to door. That survey led directly to recreation pavilions in the village, to infrastructure improvements, and as a consequence, the Rich Hill Buildings Preservation Trust was set up. That trust then used lottery money, money from the council, money from the planning service to actually give out grants to properties in the village for improvement. Rich Hill Buildings Preservation Trust, we've now changed our name to Rich Hill and District Trust. We're hoping to make an impact on the economic, the social and the environmental and heritage aspect of the village. And we've undertaken another survey. In 1990s, it was carried out door to door. It's now a digital survey carried out with QR codes, etc. The survey is not complete. We hope to have it completed by the end of October. But the early indications, the results that we have, because they're coming in digitally, are that up to 80% of the people in the village support the protection of the heritage and the conservation of the village, which is a considerable percentage. I hope that indicates that our view is not, we don't consider this a technical issue that we're being overzealous about. It's the principles, the concept has been there for 20 years as to how we want the village to develop. While the grant's not a material consideration, that was all part of everything that was done to try and ensure that the village, that we held to the concept and the principles that came through the survey at that point in time. We're now redoing that survey. So, Chair, we would submit that that we would concur with the professional planning advice that this proposal should be refused. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Again, members of the committee may be able to ask you questions as part of this debate. Okay, members, along with those representations, we also have Sarah McCauley and Brian McKeevery from Historic Environment Division joining us on Zoom. If any members have any questions for them, as well as Judy on those representatives there. Okay, members, any questions from the floor on this one? Okay, Councillor Savage, start the ball rolling.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me in, and thank you to everybody for their duty for a report on to the objectors and the applicant for their input there. I just want to preface this by saying that any of my questions aren't in relation to the Women's Institute and the good work they do. We're strictly focused on the planning application, so I think it's a given that we all respect the work that they're doing, and we're basically looking at this as a plan application, and it's no reflection on the work that they do. But given the fact that the Rich Hill conversation area guide has been in place for at least 20 years, was that not considered when these windows were originally put in back in 2020, I think it was, so 22. So I don't know if Alderman Wilson wants to answer that, or who can maybe comment on it. Was that considered when these windows were initially put in? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Don't know who would maybe best, Alderman Wilson. You want to take that one? Okay.
I don't think it was considered, to my knowledge, although I could be wrong. There are other members here tonight as well, but I think the fact is, Councillor Savage, if you look at the building, you know, a significant amount of work has been done in it, and you know, it is in very, very good condition, and the bottom window is a wooden sliding sash construction. I think, you know, personally, I think it's just a case where the top windows weren't considered. You know, this isn't a listed building, so anybody approaching it from that aspect would, yes, have sympathies in terms of the work that has gone on in the vicinity of the building. But when you look to the right hand side and you see the housing executive, you know, structure, you could say also, well, why weren't the housing executive made put sliding sash windows in? So, and when you go on around the corner, well, why weren't they, and why weren't they? You know, there's so many, and we had this discussion with NIEA when we're out on site with them. So it's not just, I suppose, as I totally get what you're saying, but I think from the lady's perspective, I suppose their thinking on this was to protect their own building and have a degree of amenity for the person living in the structure. And they were also, you know, from an economics perspective, they were very conscious of cost. So this was a cost-effective option for them as well.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Okay. Next up, a couple of lights on. Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just Trudy there stated there that it stated somewhere aluminium and PVC was not an option. There clearly is wooden options there. You know, if they've been seeking, there isn't enforcement against the old windows anyway, so they've been put in, but that was retrospective thinking that if we fire these old windows in here, well, they can't make us put the old ones back in again. Type thing, but said there was a double glazed option for the wooden windows, you know, so if the proper challenge had been asked at the time, you probably wouldn't be here today, because you could have got your wooden double glazed option and everybody would have been happy. Nope.
Thank you. I don't know, Trudy, if you want to clarify on what options would be available or compliant or sort of in your eyes, I suppose, on this one.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the Rich Hill Conservation Guide is very clear that timber is really the only option. So if you're replacing like for like, there's not much we can do about it. But if in this case they were timber originally, they should have been replaced with timber. And the policy or the guidance does say that double glazed on-site or casement would be acceptable. So it's not a case in a conservation area that you can't have double glazed options. It is an option, just as long as they're not PVC or aluminium.
Okay, thank you, Trudy. Okay, Councillor O'Dowd on Zoom there, your hand's up if you want to just unmute yourself and then come in there.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear, Councillor O'Dowd.
Okay, it was just one quick question. Did everyone have a copy of this policy or mandate or whatever you want to call it? That they would know the rules of what should be going in to a building like this?
Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. Was that one maybe for Brenda or Alderman Wilson there, just on context? I don't know whether maybe the Preservation Trust want to give more background on maybe bring in Brenda maybe first if you want to take it, Brenda. Whoops.
Okay. I have only been back in the village the last 6 years. So a lot of what has gone on was before my time. So I don't know the history of it at all. I have a colleague here who may know the answer, but so I don't know whether she would be allowed to speak or not. No?
I'm saying apparently no, they have to request speaking rights just in advance of the meeting. But
okay,
if you're able to sort of maybe tell us what you know, and then we'll maybe bring in John from the Heritage Trust or Preservation Trust there. But
yes, as I say, I don't know what the what was known and what wasn't known at that particular time. And again, I suppose if I look at the time frame, we had just come out of COVID. So for 2 years, stuff had been done. And we're a group of women. We didn't have any legal expertise or anything else. And we would have relied entirely for something like that to be pointed out, either by the person putting the windows in. And they didn't alert us to the fact, because we weren't listed, that we needed to do anything. So
these can be very complex things.
Yes.
See, Trudy, you've just got your light on there, Trudy. Maybe bring on in the background.
Thank you, Chair. The Conservation Area Guide has been in the public domain since February 1993. So it's available on the website, on the DFI website, and has been, well, I dare say 93 preceded the website, but from the website's been up and running, it's been available from that. We'd also say that planning staff are always happy to answer any queries. You know, if anybody has any questions about whether plan permission or that's required, we're always willing to help. So, you know, that advice has been out in the public domain before. We'd also point out that there is actually no, never mind that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Trudy. I suppose sometimes when we think about just placement of windows, you might not be sure if you need plan or not. But you sort of satisfied, Councillor Dowd, just regarding your query there?
Yes, no, that's fine. Thank you.
And Councillor Dowd. Councillor Wilson, you're next.
Thank you, Chair Flatman. And just probably a question to Brenda or Gareth. You spoke about reconfiguring the windows that they look more like a south style. I've seen south style windows in PVC myself, and if they're done well, they are very hard to distinguish between wood. Were you proposing completely new windows or modifying the existing windows and frames? Thank you.
Can you bring in Brenda, maybe talk the background of the detail there?
When we put in our planning application, it was for retrospective planning application request for UPVC replacement sash windows with horns for first floor flat. So we were intending to take out the ones that are causing the offence and putting in sash ones. And we assumed that because Ogle Street have got sash windows of UPVC or composite, whatever, that the planning council could then turn around and say, these are the ones we want you to put in. That was where we sort of were looking for to come and get a compromise between that and the wooden ones.
Thank you, Brenda. You content, Councillor Wilson? Okay. Councillor Flaherty, your light's on next.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks everyone for taking time to come here and explain this all and run us through all the timeline, and thanks, Trudy. The question I have may be slightly different, and forgive me if I have misunderstood this. If we go back then to October 2022 when the first PVC windows went in, and now we're proposing to replace them with new PVC windows, right? But that original work, again, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm asking a silly question, that original work was funded by ABC funding, a combination of ABC funding, just to keep me right, and Heritage Lottery funding with a list of criteria attached to that. So, and taking into consideration the Rich Hill Conservation Area Guide from 1993, maybe this is a silly question from my point of view, but would there be possible ramifications for future funding if certain parts of the criteria of the funding weren't adhered to? If that's an out of order question, churches tell me, but it just, to me, if there's criteria linked to a funding application, has everything been stuck to? I'm not sure that it has, if reading this. And what would the future ramifications be for that? Just say the Conservation Trust, if I don't know if I'm saying it right, actually, Conservation Trust, were to continue to pull down funding for Rich Hill, would this be looked at unfavourably?
Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. So if I was to summarise, what was basically the strings attached with the funding that went into the original windows, and then if with school aligned, so to speak, whether that impact any future funding application. So maybe that's one for John and the Preservation Trust, and then maybe bring in Trudy afterwards. I'll put your light on, John.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it would be our view that it would affect the reputation and the credibility of the Trust if we were to make another application, particularly to the Heritage Trust. And we have considerable more work that we want to see done in the village. So it would be our view that this could be detrimental, yes.
And just on, was there any strings attached, Councillor Flaherty, I suppose, was asking when that money was received initially, what those conditions were for that money being accepted, I suppose?
There were, I mean, and ensuring that the buildings were kept in the state that they were funded, etc. So, I mean, that is a consideration. Yeah, I mean, it's our view that the reputation and credibility of the Trust would be impacted in applying for future funds.
Thank you, John. Trudy, do you have any views on that or regarding the planning implications and so on?
Thank you, Chair. The funding side sits outside of the planning side. So from our perspective, it's separate, and yes, something that we may approve or refuse may potentially have an impact further down the line, but we have to deal with it solely on the planning merits. If I could take the opportunity, mind you, to take up an issue with Ogle Street. Ogle Street is in the Armagh Conservation Area, and each conservation area guide has its own specific rules and regulations. I've actually just done another quick read at the Armagh one, and the Armagh one doesn't actually refer to PVC. There's 2 references to PVC in relation to shop fronts and gutter and downpipes. They say that new windows in new buildings, colour-coded aluminium windows may be used instead of timber, but they don't mention PVC, where Rich Hill Guide is exceedingly clear that PVC cannot be used. So there is a difference between the 2 conservation areas. They don't stand on all fours in that regard. So just maybe to clarify that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask, just in the reference to Ogle Street. I suppose just a couple of other questions I want to just ask as well. I think maybe it was Brenda or Alderman Wilson made references to other applications maybe in this area where PVC was installed, if that's right, but those weren't challenged, and you know, they put in their application, which is being challenged in terms of consistency. Is there an inconsistency approach here regarding this application compared to the others? Maybe Trudy, if you want to bring in, if you're aware of those other applications.
Thank you, Chair. Some of the windows are particularly historic. The one immediately next door, Alderman Wilson and I looked at it together, and it did look of vintage. There were another couple that looked more recent, but of anything that we could find appeared to have been PVC previously. So if it was PVC, it can be replaced with PVC. Kyle's just mentioned one that they dealt with, and they insisted on it having wooden windows in it as well. So anything that we can think of, now we could be proven wrong, but as far as we're aware, we've insisted on wood where it is replacing wood, as per the guidance it sort of directs us to.
Thank you, Trudy. I have 2 more people looking to speak. Alderman Kennedy first, and Councillor O'Dowd after.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me back in. This one's sort of towards Brenda and Gareth. Regarding at the time you stated the company come out and they fitted them, it wasn't really up to the company, I don't think, till say they were asked to do a job, they come out. Did you price solely for PVC, or did you price a wooden double glazed option at the same time?
As I say, I wasn't in the WI at that time. I'd have to. Did you get pricing for?
We, in our innocence, asked for PVC replica of.
Okay, so it's. Yeah.
We didn't think we were doing anything wrong.
No, so it was PVC replicas that they had asked to be quoted for, as opposed to either or.
Okay.
They wanted me to speak.
No, you're okay, Brenda. You okay with that? That's your Councillor Kennedy. Councillor O'Dowd, you're next. Just want to unmute yourself there and work away.
Sorry for coming in again. And thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Just one wee thing. I totally agree with Councillor Flaherty. There was a few wee queries there I wasn't too sure about. And the main one again was on the list of criteria. Obviously they weren't all met. The other thing was Brenda had just said there that they had asked for PVC replica. But surely you know the difference between PVC replica and PVC when the windows are going in, and that would concern me a wee bit, considering there's a big difference between PVC and wooden frames. So it was just a query, you know, about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. I think maybe just a query was sort of answered there just on the previous response, but I think that's sort of noted, just the sort of the timeline here building up. Okay, members, I don't have any other lights on here or on Zoom. Any other questions before we move into a debate stage regarding this application? Okay, members, I'm not seeing any lights on. Oh, sorry, Alderman Wilson, you need to be asked a question, but I see no people putting their lights on here. And the ones still putting their lights on. So we're, apologies, Alderman Wilson. Councillor Wilson, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask that we allow Alderman Wilson to hear what comments he has to make before we go into the debate stage? Thank you.
Okay, well, I suppose maybe it's only fair to allow all comments from all the representatives, and if we're going to bring in Alderman Wilson first and then the Heritage Trust.
Yeah, from what I can understand, I mean, there was a sort of an inference there that the group had got some type of benefit or funding from the trust. That's not my impression or understanding in it, from what I understand. So it's not that they broke any particular criteria, or they didn't follow a procedure. This is basically down, in my opinion, and in the opinion of AAI, that they've replaced a window with what looks like a very sensible window to a non-listed building. This comes from the issue that we're here with is planners and NIEA insisting that it should be of a particular material. And I'm just reiterating the fact that you only have to look a very tiny short distance away to see multiple different types of materials used in the very close proximity to this building for glazing, and it's double glazed and single glazed, and there's housing executive. I mean, they haven't been made to do anything. I mean, I think it was what I was told was, oh, it's outside any time for enforcement. So the ladies here are just sort of a victim of that in many ways, that they're within this period of time, and council officials, and they can take representations, and they can lean on the ladies here to make changes simply because that is the rules. But I'm just, I suppose, appealing to people just to, even, before making a decision, have a look at it. I mean, the pictures do it justice, but I think a walk through it also does it a lot of justice, because when you turn the corner, you have a multitude of different window types, all within a very, very close proximity to the WI building and across from the conservation project. And that, I'm not taking away from the work that was done. It's really, really good. All I'm saying is what has been done here is, I think we're dancing the head of a pin in this regard, and I'm very much of the opinion that we shouldn't put the ladies to further expense unnecessarily.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Just in the base of fairness, sir, does anyone, either John or Jim from the Bidlands Preservation Trust, want to come in with any closing remarks, sir? Jim will bring you in.
Chairman, Alderman, councillors, when I put in the application, or the application to be here today, I put it in on behalf of myself and indeed the trust members, and I indicated that John Briggs and myself wouldn't be in attendance. As regards criteria that was implemented when the trust was funding this building and indeed other buildings, the criteria is perfectly clear. It is perfectly clear. There was ample time, ample opportunity, 4 days of consultation within the village, whereby there was several hundred people, including most of the people in the WI who attended to that. And it was quite clear there was evidence there. Rich Hill was a conservation area. The desire was to enhance the area and bring back vacant space into productive use. Above the upper story of the WI Hall was by and large vacant, unusable, and hence got a sizable portion of money, 84,000 in all, to bring it back into productive use. It has been let as a flat, and there is an income stream as a consequence of that. So I don't think anyone can be under any illusion that there wasn't a proper consultation, indeed a proper awareness And I have a booklet here, which I'm quite happy to share with everyone in this room. And it
Jim,
has
you're not allowed to present information that hasn't already been presented.
Okay, I accept that, but it does outline clearly that the funding was subject to a criteria for the village, and there is absolutely no doubt about that. And the opportunity for future funding, I, at this moment in time, as chair of the trust, are trying to have a meeting with Heritage Lottery with a view to a visit to the village. Now, credibility in that case is an issue. If you bring them back and see that you haven't properly policed the funding that you originally got, your credibility is at stake. And that's where the trust stand. And I'm here not on my own, but I'm here representing the trust, each and every individual member. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And just final light on Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I was just reiterating what Councillor Savage had said earlier on. We sort of have to deal with the plan and application in front of us. There's a lot of references been made to various Ogle Streets and other ones. We have to focus entirely, what Councillor Savage says, on the one in front of us. It's not what he did and what she did. It's what's before us here now, I think.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. And with that, there's no more lights on, so we'll move into the debate stage. So what's your views on this, members? First light on is Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Well, looking at the information here, yes, there probably was guidance. It's 31 years old. Where would anybody after 31 years go to look for this information that they weren't aware that applied to them? You know, that's just crazy. This has been done with the best intentions. As you can see, the building adjacent, if you zoom in, it's a pink building. You could stand, put one hand on the building we're speaking about and the other hand on the other building that looks to me like PVC windows, and it's not a listed building. So, as I say, why would you need to go and look for all this information when common sense would think you don't have to comply to these regulations after 31 years? It's available online. Anybody in this chamber, why would you even start going to look if it's not a listed building? You didn't think anything that got applied to you. So, you know, I think the lack of information that this applicant is allegedly have to go and trawl through to put windows in. We see retrospective applications in regularly in this for major building works. These are 4 PVC windows. They're willing to compromise and put something in it keeps up with the character of the area. So I think, in my opinion, on one objector, to me, I think it sounds a bit harsh, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. And as I said earlier, we're dealing with planning policy. There's 3 reasons outlined why this has been refused. You know, I have every sympathy with the Women's Institute, and they've done everything, you know, and nobody's disparaging them for what they're done. But the simple thing is that there's planning policy in place, and we're not applying common sense. We're applying planning policy to this, and on the basis of the refusal reasons. And like, you know, I think it's well known that Rich Hill is a conservation area as well. You know, it would be unwise for us as a committee to go against this officer's recommendations based on the amount of information that's out there already. And, you know, the request is a simple one, you know, that it keeps in character with the timber windows, and, you know, that is probably the best course of action. But I'd be up to the other members to give their opinions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. We'll go to Alderman Kennedy first, then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Savage sort of beat my tail. I was just stating that it was nothing to do with really the objection in it. It's totally plan and policy stated here that has brought the recommendation for refusal. So I have every sympathy with those involved, but I think when you're following, there's 3 different criteria, and Trudy said about aluminium and PVC wasn't acceptable, so it's plan and policy or nothing else.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. Councillor Dowd, do you want to come in there? Are you content at this stage? You're content at this stage?
Yes, I'm content at this stage.
Okay, members, I'm not seeing any other lights on or hands up on Zoom here regarding the debate stage, so in that case, we have to move into a decision phase. Members, is there any proposals regarding this application? Councillor Savage.
Chair, I propose we accept the recommendation as outlined in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Councillor Flaherty.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second the recommendation in the report.
Oh, you guys still on? Okay, members, a proposal by Councillor Savage, second by Councillor Flaherty, that we accept a recommendation from planners. Any other proposals on the floor, members? Not seeing any other lights on or hands up, members. Therefore, there's only one proposal before, so we all agreed. Okay, members, we're all agreed, and that recommendation to refuse has been accepted. I can just take my time to thank Brenda, Alderman Wilson, John, and Jim, and those who attended as well and online. Thank you for participating in this application. Hope you all get home very safe and well. Okay, members, we're moving on to the next application. We're still waiting for a couple of people for Appendix 1, so we'll move on to Appendix 3. That's application number L08 2022/1086/F. This is a returning application. I'm going to hand over to Roisin Hamill, who'll take us through the presentation. Where are you, Roisin?
Thank you, Chair. This application for the retention of alterations to the extension of a dwelling, including a single-storey rear extension, retaining wall, residential annex, and boundary timber panel fence, and the erection of a new timber fence with associated landscaping and site works at 11 Newry Road, Banbridge, was previously presented to the committee on the 11th of September with a recommendation to approve. At that meeting, members resolved to grant planning permission for the proposed development, subject to the amendment of condition number 4 to ensure the existing hedge along the northern boundary of the site be retained in perpetuity, and if it dies or becomes damaged, that it will be replaced. Members also requested a further condition requiring that a fence to be erected on the northern boundary of the property adjacent to the objector's property to be provided to a specified height. The conditions requested have been set out in the report as amended by the addendum which has been circulated. Members are requested to agree the amended and additional planning conditions as set out in the report. And I'm happy to take you through the slides again. That's helpful. All right, Paula.
So we're just going to pause for a second there. Oh, here we go.
Okay, and the blue arrow gives you an idea of where we are in the general areas in the Newry Road Banbridge. That's our application site outlined in red, number 11's large detached property. That's a close-up aerial view of the site. You can see it's quite a long, elongated property. This is the existing site layout plan. And these are the existing floor plans before the extension was carried out. And again, the existing first floor plans. The existing elevations of the property. And these are the proposed floor plans showing the extensions to the property. Proposed first floor plans. And proposed roof plans. And these are the elevations with the extensions. And again, you can see the rear extension that to the rear of the property there. And this is the proposed site layout, and you can see the annex there just to the northern boundary of the site. And you recall these are the elevations of the residential annex and the floor plans of the residential annex. So this is the front elevation of the dwelling and the rear elevation of the dwelling with the extension carried out. And this is a view from the back of the property. You can see the residential annex tucked up in at the back there where the blue arrow is. And this is a view of the retaining wall and the fence to be retained. And this is the front elevation of the residential annex. And the rear elevation of to the boundary with the school pitch. And this is the boundary with number 3 Mount Royal, and this is the hedge that's to be retained at a height of no less than 3 metres. And the new fence would be located between the hedge and the annex there. And this is the side elevation of the annex and the boundary with 4 Mount Royal. The proposal as approved included a new 2.1 metre high fence along this boundary. And this is looking to the side of the annex from number 4. And again, the proposal as included a 2.1 metre high fence along this boundary. And this is a view from the rear of number 3 Mount Royal. And again, that's the hedge, which it is to be proposed to be retained at no less than 3 metres in height. So members are requested to agree the amended or the proposed conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Roisin. And just a note, an addendum report has been circulated with those revised conditions. Remember, this is an application that came to us quite recently there last month, and obviously those conditions presented on the back of what was discussed. If there's any questions, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. The conditions reflect what we spoke about last month, so I don't think we need to do much more, and I'm happy to propose that we accept them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Yeah, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to echo the comments of Councillor Savage. Yes, this is sensible arrangements for both parties, and happy to second. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, proposals on this matter? Not seeing any lights on or hands up. So proposed by Councillor Savage, seconded by Councillor Wilson, that we accept the recommendation with those updated conditions. Are we all agreed, members? Okay, members, we're all agreed. We're going on to Appendix 4 now. Application number LOA 2023/2237/F. And it's recommended for approval. We have a couple of people making representation, so we'll just let them come into the chamber before we begin a presentation to trade. Okay, members, we're just waiting on those making representation just come into committee. Hopefully it'll be just another minute or two. Okay, with everyone make a representation who's now in committee or online, while everyone's getting set, we'll hand over to Trudy Chapman, Senior Planning Officer, to present a report and PowerPoint presentation. Over to yourself, Trudy.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the creation of a new access onto Folly Park from number 1 Rosemount Park, Armagh, and is before you this evening as objections from 4 addresses have been received. Firstly, can I draw members' attention to condition 4 listed in the report? This requires the parking to be provided within 3 months of the date of the decision and actually conflicts with condition 1, which allows 5 years for the permission to be commenced. As such, officers would seek to amend the wording of condition 4 to read, within 3 months of the commencement of the works hereby approved, provision shall be made and permanently retained within the curtilage of the site for the parking and turning of private cars as shown on drawing number PL 03A. The proposal seeks to provide vehicular access onto Folly Park through the removal of an existing fence and vegetation and the creation of parking and turning areas within the existing rear garden area of number 1 Rosemount Park. Officers are of the opinion that the proposal will not have an adverse impact on the street scene, nor will it have any adverse impact on built heritage given the distance between the site and any historic assets. It is considered that the proposal will not have any greater impact on the residential amenity of adjacent properties than that created by existing parking provision and access arrangements within the wider area. DFI Roads have been consulted in relation to the proposal and have raised no objections, advising that in their opinion the proposal represents betterment to the existing situation. Members are advised that to date 18 objections have been received from 4 addresses. The comments raised in consideration of these have been detailed in the report, but can be summarised as land ownership, road safety, parking concerns, loss of vegetation, which provides privacy for residents and habitat for wildlife. Members are advised that officers, having considered the proposal and the objections received, are of the opinion that the proposal meets the relevant planning policies and recommend that the proposal be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the report. And I'll just take you through the PowerPoint, please. So we are located within the settlement limits of Armagh. And the next slide, please. So that's our application site. As you see, it fronts both onto Rosemount Park and Folly Park. Next slide, please. So this is the aerial photograph showing the site within the wider area. And the next one, please. And then this is a close-up, and there should be one more that circles the site for us. And that's our application site. Next slide, please. So this is taken from Folly Lane, looking up into Rosemount Park. As you can see, it's only the width to allow 1 car access into that development. Next slide, please. And this is taken slightly further up, and that's showing number 1 Rosemount Park, which is our application site. Next slide, please. This is taken from the frontage of Rosemount Park. As you can tell, there isn't a vehicular access to the site at all. What they have done is they've removed part of their front garden, which is terraced, to be able to create a parking space at the side of the road. And then the next slide, please. So that's looking back down. As you can see, this is taken from just above where the pinch point is. As you go further up into Rosemount Park, the road does widen and there is a footpath, but this particular section of road is very narrow. Next slide, please. So these are taken from within the back garden of 1 Rosemount Park. And that shows the fence to the rear that binds onto Folly Park. And the bottom left corner is the existing pedestrian access that leads out from that rear elevation. Next slide, please. So this is taken from Folly Park, looking across towards the application site. Again, just in the centre of the photograph, you can see that green close boarded fence that you've seen from the other side in the previous slide. Next slide, please. And this is taken slightly further down towards Folly Lane, looking back up. It's taken actually outside number 1 Folly Park and looking back up towards the application site. Next slide, please. So this is a close-up. So that's basically that pedestrian gate that we've seen from the other side, taken from the Folly Park side. As you can see, that's the vegetation that will be removed. It's predominantly Castlewell and Golds and some scrub vegetation. Next slide, please. That's the proposed layout, which indicates that there'll be provision for 2 car parking spaces and that cars will be able to turn and leave in a forward gear. Next slide, please. And this is our last slide. So the 4 dots show the 4 addresses that the objections came from in relation to the application site. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. Okay, members of a number of representations here to committee on this application. First up with Mary Hagan, and we'll have Paula McCrory to make a representation and objection to this application. You're both very welcome to committee this afternoon. You have 3 minutes. I don't know whether you want to do you have a primary speaker who speaks for the 3 minutes, or do you want to split it equally between yourselves? No worries. Okay, members, we'll begin with Mary. I'll just bring you in, Mary.
Okay. I'd like to just go back to the original plan application where the applicant has.
Sorry, we just need to reset put the wrong. Just need to reset the clock. It's like countdown here. Reset the clock. Need to get a haircut.
I'd just like to go back to the original plan application where it stated that no changes had been made to the development. That's a false statement. Sorry. I purchased number 2 Folly Park. I'll hand it over to you. I'm too emotional.
Okay, this obviously is a very emotive topic for Maura, who bought the house, and there was a green area, a complete hedgerow in front of her. She moved into her house on the 21st of June 2021. And when she bought the house, it was a complete hedgerow. On the 21st of April, the applicant came in and removed a sizable portion of the hedgerow. They constructed a double gate, and they put in stones to the depth of 2 feet. When you mentioned an existing pedestrian access, I personally have lived in Folly Park for 50 years, well, approaching 50 years. There was never a pedestrian access. It was always closed off with greenery. Now, in the application, there's a certificate A has been completed. This land is owned by John Taylor, Lord Kilbroney, and we pay ground rent every 6 months to Mr. Taylor or Bramley Apple Restaurants. How the applicant has been able to complete a certificate for land that doesn't belong to them, I can't understand it. We also have correspondence from the Transport for Northern Ireland on the 20th of the 6th, 17, states the land is in private ownership. To gain access to this site is impossible. I tried on Saturday. There's 11 cars in Folly Park at any one time. The cars are parked out on the main road. It's impossible to access that site if there's any cars parked in front of number 2. Planning have actually acknowledged that when they've said that the cars must exit the site in forward gear. So does that mean anytime we see someone reversing out of the proposed site, is that a breach of planning? You know, I accept that Rosemount has problems. The road area is dreadful. I accept that, and I empathise with that. And yes, it would be to the betterment of Rosemount, but it most certainly would be to the detriment of the residents of Folly Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. You're well within your time. Both yourself and Mary are able to answer questions if members of the committee have any during the course of the debate. Members were joined by Stephen Hughes from NI Planning Consultants to make a representation and support the application. Stephen, you're on Zoom. So if you want to unmute yourself, and we'll bring up the 3 minutes again here just on the screen. Hopefully you can see that okay, Stephen. We'll just hand over to yourself and you can begin to speak whenever you're ready.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, good. No. Thank you, Chair. We welcome this recommendation by the case officers and thank them for their diligent work during the application process. This application offers an opportunity to provide a safer environment for our clients, their family, and the wider community by minimising the need for vehicles to park on the street, reducing potential hazards. Our client has one existing external parking space in the lay-by in Rosemount Park at a bottleneck location, and providing these internal spaces in their rear yard in this proposal will help reduce congestion in the area, improving overall traffic flow. DFI Roads, who are the competent authority on the matter, have no objections to the proposal and note that the development is a significant betterment to the existing parking provision in the area. The proposed plan ensures that sufficient private amenity space will remain within the property, maintaining the balance between functionality and livability, whilst the majority of mature vegetation is retained, ensuring new parking spaces will be screened from external view. It's essential to emphasise that, in accordance with established legal principles, the burden of proof rests on those challenging the existing ownership. Our client has exercised sole and exclusive possession of the land since 1990, and there is no discernible indication of ownership by any third party during this period. It is noticeable in almost the year and a half this application has been in the system, no evidence has been presented by third party objectors. Absent compelling evidence to the contrary, our client's claim to ownership remains unchallenged. It is also crucial to note that planning permission, as sought by our client, does not confer or establish title or ownership rights, and ultimately the issue of land ownership is a civil matter between parties. And this application should therefore be focusing on the merit of the proposal in terms of land use and development considerations of the property ownership. In summary, this proposal offers practical benefits by improving parking availability, enhancing safety, and preserving the natural features of the site. And I therefore respectfully urge the committee to approve this application. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Stephen. And again, please stay with us in case any members of the committee have any questions. Members also joined by David Sheeran from DFI Roads, who is here if members have any questions on those kind of roads issues. Okay, members, is there any questions or queries regarding this application? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you everybody who presented there, and to the objectors and to the agent as well. I just want to start off with asking David about the assessments that DFA completed in there, just to give us an overview. I know there's some information in the report, but it would be good to hear from him at this stage. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, David. Just want to come in those road matters.
Yes, Chair. In looking at this application, we have considered that the betterment that it offers, the existing road on Rosemount Park, is constrained as treaties set out, and the level of parking that's available to that property, it's essentially a limited lay-by to the front of the property, which is very difficult to get in and out of. So the proposal to make an alternative to take vehicles off the road and keep the free flow of traffic moving. The proposal to make an access to the rear onto Folly Park. Now, as I understand from the planner's report, the pedestrian gate has been looked at and deemed to be immune from enforcement or permitted. So there's nothing really to stop those people from parking on Folly Park like anybody else who's taxed and insured to park on a public road. So they can already do that and utilise the pedestrian access in through the back of their property. I understand what they're saying about the limitations of parking on Folly Park, that there's, personally, I have to admit I haven't seen it overly parked. I maybe haven't been there at the right time of the day to see that. But the location of the access that is proposed is specifically opposite that of number 2 Folly Park. So in theory, nobody should really be parking on street opposite that driveway because it would obstruct the entrance to number 2. So the two driveways are opposite each other. So they should be mutually clear so you can get in and out of each access. And clearly taking 2 cars off street into an in-curtilage parking area where you're providing turning and parking space in curtilage is a betterment. A point was made there about them having to reverse in and out. Well, you can't force people to drive in forward gear and exit in forward gear, but the layout facilitates that and actively encourages it. So if people want to reverse into a driveway or out of it, as long as they drive according to the rules of the road and not recklessly. They're not committing any offence. So in round terms, we consider this to be an overall betterment.
Thank you, David. You content, Councillor Savage? Okay, Councillor O'Dowd on Zoom. Just unmute yourself and come in there.
Thank you, Chair. It was just one wee thing. I totally agree there now with DFI, which is strange. But if there isn't room on the road, surely having 2 extra parking spaces is going to make the whole area safer for everyone. Now, I do sympathise with the trees, if there's trees being cut down and things like that. But at the same time, we have to look at the policy, and that's our planning policy. And if there's no objections apart from this particular one, which again I do say I sympathise with, I really don't see there being an issue. But one thing I would like to ask, did the applicant purchase this, or where's this third party coming from? Have we any idea?
Thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. That might be one for Stephen Hughes. Just, do you have any clarity on who owns this land and what so on regarding that kind of matter?
This issue came up during the process of the application when we had submitted folio maps from our client's initial purchase of the house back in 1990. And there's a small strip of unregistered land, and it's the contention, and essentially our clients have exercised sole and exclusive use of this over the entirety of that time. And a number of objections obviously were received during the process and assertions of other ownership, but nobody has ever actually come forward with any shred of evidence to the contrary. And it's when you're coming back to that issue of civil matters between parties, and if our clients have been in use of it for more than the 12 years that would be can potentially be adverse possession on it, and there's no one else to come on the other side to say anything to the contrary. So it's still it's a small verge, and it's still our contention that it's our clients, that someone else can prove otherwise.
Thank you, Stephen. Trudy, do you want to come in and give any sort of background on this in terms of technical details regarding ownership and what we can consider and can't consider and so on?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the agent has pointed out, we did raise the query and we did get a folio, and there is a small strip of land. But as he also said in his presentation, the granting of permission in itself doesn't confer title. The ladies also mentioned that they pay ground rent. Any application of to develop a house, a lot of people pay ground rent, myself included. It doesn't preclude you developing that land. You do, for all intents and purposes, own the land and are fit to develop it. In our consideration of it, we felt that this didn't preclude us approving the development. It doesn't conflict with our policies or our consideration of the application.
Thank you, Trudy. And will DFI have a view on the land ownership, David?
Yes, sorry, I neglected to say that our check on that is DFI roads don't maintain the road verge there. We maintain the surface part of the road to the curb. There isn't a service strip or verge that we maintain. It's third-party land. I think that was what the objector was referring to in her statement. That was a check on that some years ago, I believe. So I can confirm it isn't a maintained verge, but planning permission doesn't confer title.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one where you can apply for planning permission on land you don't own. It's kind of at risk until those land matters are sort of settled there. Any other hands up or queries, members? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me back in. And I don't want to get down the rabbit hole of land ownership, but Trudy, could I just ask you, if somebody else did own this land, then granting planning permission you know, whilst it would be a civil matter, would essentially, you know, it would be worthless if they didn't own the land and the landowner objected. So, you know, is that the case if somebody did come forward and provide evidence at a later date through the courts, not through the planning process, you know, there could be issues with actually going ahead with this? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. In theory, yes. We had no evidence put just during the process and application of who did own it. As the agent has pointed out, in their opinion, it's disputed. There is no owner attached to it. The permission is granted with a period of 5 years, so they have 5 years to resolve that between themselves, to go further and look. If nobody's coming forward, again, you know, it is a civil matter. If the owner themselves doesn't come forward to say that they own it, there would be no planning issue to stop the development going ahead at that point.
Thank you, Trudy. Content, Councillor Savage? Okay, members, any other lights on or hands up, or moving out of discussion, or moving out of the question phase, moving into debate and discussion phase? Members, are any questions or queries at all? Or sorry, any views on this application at all? I mean, not seeing any lights on or hands up. We'll move into decision phase. Members, is there any proposals on this matter? Councillor Donnelly?
Thank you, Chair. I propose that we accept the recommendation.
Okay, members, will propose to accept the recommendation to refuse. Does that have a seconder? Councillor Savage?
Chair, I'll second the recommendation.
Okay, member, with a proposal that's been seconded to accept the recommendation to approve. Any other proposals on the floor, members? Not seeing any other lights on or hands up, members. Are all agreed in that proposal to approve? Okay, members are all agreed. So that's applications approved. Just want to thank Paula and Mary and Stephen and David for making the presentation to committee, and wish us all a safe home. Okay, members, we're on to the next application. That is application 5 808 2022/0923/F from David McMaster. We'll just wait to get set up here. Okay, members, I'm just going to hand over to Roisin Hamill, Principal Planning Officer, to present a report and PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 24 dwellings and associated works on lands north of Primrose Hill, Guildford. The application is being presented to committee as it attracts objections from more than 4 postal addresses. The application site lies primarily within the development limits of Guildford and on land zoned for housing. A portion of the site extends beyond the settlement limit into the countryside, and this section of the site is to be heavily landscaped in the interest of visual amenity to soften the visual impact of the proposal. For the reasons set out in detail in the report, officers are of the opinion that the proposal to develop the site for residential purposes accords with the provisions of the Banbridge New Mourne Area Plan, the key site requirements as set out in the plan, and PPS 21, such that the proposal to develop the site for residential purposes is considered acceptable in principle. Policy QD1 of PPS 7 requires new residential development to demonstrate that the proposal will create a quality and sustainable environment. Policy QD1 identifies 9 criteria which proposals for residential development are expected to comply with. These have been considered in detail in the report, and as set out, officers are of the opinion that the proposed development is acceptable, such that it complies with the SPPS, Policy QD1 of PPS 7, its addendum, and the supplementary planning guidance as detailed in Creating Places. Members are advised the application was accompanied by a drainage assessment, a biodiversity checklist and preliminary ecological assessment, a transport assessment form, a landscape management and maintenance plan, and a sunlight and shadow analysis. In terms of traffic, access and parking, officers in consultation with DFI Roads are satisfied that the access for the existing Primrose Hill housing development onto the Tandragee Road is to the required standard to serve the proposed development. There are 48 in curtilage parking spaces and 18 on-street visitor parking spaces proposed, a total of 66 parking spaces. Officers are of the opinion that the proposed parking provision and layout is acceptable. Following consultation with DFI Rivers, officers are satisfied that the proposed development will not raise any detrimental adverse impacts on drainage and or flood risk matters. Having regards to natural heritage and a biodiversity checklist and ecological assessment were submitted in support of the application. NED assessed the content and considered that the proposed development is unlikely to significantly impact protected or priority species or habitats. They advised that a condition should be attached to ensure that trees which could provide roosting opportunities for bats are retained and protected during the construction phase of the development. Members are advised there were a number of objections in relation to the proposal, and all of the matters raised have been considered and addressed in detail in the report. Officers have considered the application against the area plan and the prevailing planning policies and are of the opinion the proposal is acceptable and are recommending that the application be approved subject to the conditions as set out. And I'm happy to go through the slides with you. And the red arrow just gives you an indication of where we are. We're on the outskirts of Guildford, just out the Tandragee Road. And that's our site location map, and Primrose Hill lies just to the south there, that wee development to the south of the red line. This is an aerial photograph of the sites and its surroundings. You can see it's in a primarily residential area. So as I've said, Primrose Hill lies to the south and Chestnut Brae to the north. Pineview Heights and Pineview Court lie to the east of the site. And this is a layout plan just showing the linear form of development of the proposed development. And this is our landscape plan, and you can see there is a landscape buffer proposed to the west of the site, and the purpose of that is to soften the visual impact of the development. This is house type A. I think there's one house type A in the development. House types B1 and B, and these are split level dwellings proposed to the east of the development road. And house type C and D, and these are primarily to the west side of the development road. These are sectional drawings through the site and to the adjacent lands, and you can see the one on the bottom there takes you from Primrose Hill up the site across to Chestnut Brae. And these are a number of sectional drawings. Because this is a sloping site, we'd ask for a number of sectional drawings through the site just so we could assess the impact on the adjacent residential properties. So these are the ones to the north of the site which front onto Pineview Heights. And then these are further sectional drawings through the site to the southern part of the site, showing the impact on Pineview Court. And these show the relationship with the existing dwellings at Chestnut Brae, which lie to the north of the site. So this is a photograph of us coming up through Primrose Hill towards the application site. And this is just at the way end of the Primrose Hill development, looking up towards the houses there at Chestnut Brae. And this is looking back in the opposite direction, back down towards Primrose Hill. And this is a view of the site looking towards the boundary of the Pineview Court to the east. All that hedging that you can see is to be retained and augmented. And just another view of the site looking towards Pineview Court to the east. And again, the hedging is to be retained. So this is views looking towards the north, up towards the existing houses on Chestnut Brae, and you'll see from the late photographs there is also hedging there which is to be retained. So this is just a closer drawing looking at those existing houses on Chestnut Brae. And another view on the site looking up towards Chestnut Brae. And this is a view looking from the east towards the houses there on Pineview Heights. And that's just a section of the boundary with Pineview Heights. Again, this is to be retained. And again, this boundary with Pineview Court and Pineview Heights is all to be retained and augmented. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Roisin, and members. Just noting that the addendum report has been circulated regarding this application. Okay, members, with one representation to committee, that's David McMaster, who's making a representation in support of the application. David, you have 3 minutes if you want to use it, or do you want to just take queries? Or okay, David just here to take queries. If any queries for David regarding the application. Okay, members, any questions or queries on this application? Okay, no hands up, no lights on. Okay, members, we'll move into the debate discussion stage. Any views on this application, members? Councillor Savage.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just be brief. It's a very comprehensive report and it outlines all the issues. And, you know, I don't really have any questions. That's why I didn't ask any for the sake of it. So, you know, everything seems in order. The conditions seem reasonable. And, you know, I'm content with what's outlined in the report on the recommendation. So just my thoughts, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, members, moving from discussion stage into decision. Is there any proposals on this matter, members? Any proposals at all, members? Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Proposal be accepted recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Is there a seconder there, Alderman Kennedy?
Thank you, Chair. Happy enough to second for this recommendation.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. So proposed by Councillor Donnelly, seconded by Alderman Kennedy, that we accept the officer's recommendations. Any other proposals, members? Okay, members, no other proposals. We all agreed? Yeah, we're all agreed, members. So thank you, David. Okay, members, Appendix 6, Appendix 7, Appendix 8, and Appendix 9 have all been removed from today's scheduled business following late receipt of an objection, so we'll be dealt with in due course. Appendix 10 was removed also, as you know, so that means we're on to Appendix 11, which is application number LA08 2024/0957/S54. Just making sure everyone's been invited to join in the waiting room here online. Okay, that's Jenny joined with us now. Okay, members, firstly, we're just going to hand over to Kyle Alder, Senior Plan Officer, to present a report and PowerPoint presentation. Over to yourself, Kyle.
Thanks, Chair. This plan application is a Section 54 application which seeks to vary Condition 6 of Plan Approval LA08 2022-0601F, which has granted plan permission for 72 residential units at the Deanery in Armagh. This plan application is required to go before the Planning Committee as it's seeking to vary a condition of a major plan application. Officers have taken it, members have read the report in full, and as such, this is a synopsis only. Section 54 of the Planning Act Northern Ireland 2011 is part that allows for an application to be made for planning permission for the development of land without complying with conditions subject to which a previous planning permission was granted. In considering an application made under Section 54, members must only consider the question of the conditions subject to which the planning permission should be granted. Consequently, the scope of members is in principle more limited when dealing with a Section 54 application, though members are entitled to consider the circumstances that led to the previous original conditional grant of planning permission. Condition 6 of the plan approval requires that no dwellings and sites numbers 30 to 58 are occupied until the play equipment and open space areas have been provided. Members are advised that 3 areas of open space were approved in this phase of the development and 1 area has been provided to date. The applicant seeks to vary the timing of Condition 6 so that open space and play park are provided prior to occupation of the dwellings and site numbers 54 to 58 as opposed to 30 to 58. Members are advised that the layout of this particular phase of the development contains a cul-de-sac, at the back of which is an area of open space, which is to contain the play park in an area of open space. This is surrounded by the dwellings and sites 30 to 58. A confidential health and safety report has been submitted in support of this application by the applicant, which raises concerns regarding the building and fitting out of a playground while major construction activity involving heavy vehicles surrounds it. Risks identified include risks to children entering the site and play park due to the construction in the area. The report recommends variation in the implementation of the play park and open space in accordance with the condition proposed. Officers accept the findings of the health and safety report and concur that the health and safety benefits of delaying the implementation of the open space and play park outweigh the positive amenity benefit of having the space delivered earlier. The amendment to the wording of the condition will not result in any harm to the provision of the approved areas of open space and play park, albeit their delivery will be delayed for health and safety reasons. Members are also advised that units 54 to 58 are centrally located within the development. Due to the layout of the development and health and safety issues raised as a result, the variation of condition 6 is therefore considered to be appropriate in this instance. Officers are content that this variation creates no conflict with the SPPS or policy OS2 of PPS 8 and policy QD1 of PPS 7. Members are also advised that no letters of objection have been submitted regarding this plan application. So overall, approval is recommended for the reasons outlined in the report and subject to the conditions suggested in the report. We just have a very short PowerPoint presentation then. So in terms of the location of the site, the arrow is a wee bit misleading, but it is to the northeast of Armagh, within the settlement limits of Armagh. Next slide then just shows the site location plan with the site outlined in red. Next slide then is an aerial image of the site. So there has been work carried out on the site, which I'll discuss in a moment, but you can see earlier phases of the deanery development to the west and the southwest. Next slide then shows the approved site layout. So you can see the darker green areas are the 3 areas of open space that were approved in this development. And just in the larger area of open space towards the bottom, you can see the blue circle, which is the play park. Next slide then, the blue polygon just shows the dwellings which are currently constructed and occupied within this development. You can just see the area of open space, which I've identified with the red letter A. That area of open space has been provided. The next slide then shows, and again in the blue polygon, the dwellings which are either substantially complete or under construction. So the dwellings at the top following on from the previous development, they're generally substantially complete and then working round into various stages of construction. Next slide then, it just shows the blue polygon, sorry, again shows the dwellings at sites number 30 to 58. So these are the dwellings that condition 6 currently applies to. So as you can see, that encircles that area of open space and the play park. So if that play park was developed too early, effectively we could have children straying from that play park facility past heavy construction traffic and potentially into a working building site, and the dangers that would involve. The final slide then just shows the dwellings, the 5 dwellings in sites number 54 to 58. So these are the dwellings that the applicant is proposing to change the condition to, so that none of those dwellings can be occupied prior to the play parks and open space being provided. So again, you can see the dwellings, they are centrally located, and the argument is made that at that stage, all the heavy construction traffic will have left the site, and all the scaffolding and any other danger to a child will have left the site, and most of the works will be internal at that stage, avoiding potential health and safety risks to children or anyone else who would be on that site. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. And we have joining by Zoom Jenny Mawhinney from NBA Planning to make representation and support the application. Jenny, you're very welcome to committee this afternoon. If you want to just take yourself off mute there, you'll see your 3 minutes in front of you, which will begin to count down whenever you start to speak. So over to yourself, Jenny.
Thank you, Chairman, elected members. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address the committee tonight. I'm the planning consultant for this application and only intend to provide you with a short address. The applicant will be well known to members. Deanery Domain is an established company delivering high quality residential development across the significant housing development for Armagh. The case officer report has outlined the key issue faced by my client with respect to the current stage of construction. The planning permission contains a condition requiring the play park to be built out prior to the occupation of units 30 to 58. Given the cul-de-sac layout of the site, the phasing of construction is only become apparent recently of the conflict between the timing provision of the play park and health and safety considerations. An independent report confirms the risk remains in the category of fatal even when mitigation is put forward, such as security fencing. The proposed variation to the condition resequences the building out of the play park to align with the construction programme that assures all heavy plant machinery and all large delivery vehicles will be off-site. The only work that will take place will be the internal fit-out of the last remaining 5 units. This removes the key risk factor for users of the play park and ensures that patrons of the park are duly protected, while also ensuring the play park's delivered in a timely manner to the benefit of the wider site. As such, the proposal complies with PPS 8 for open space, which is the determining policy context for this application. For those reasons, we commend the scheme to you. We endorse the careful and detailed analysis presented by the officer in your committee report pack, and we wish to extend our thanks to the Planning Department for dealing with this matter so swiftly, given the potentially serious nature of the circumstances for patrons of the site and my client. We invite the Planning Committee to ratify the recommendation tonight, and we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jenny. You're well within your time there, and if you want to stick with us in case anyone wants to ask any questions or queries. Any questions or queries on this one, members? What's any lights up or hands up? So we'll move into the debate stage. Any views on this, members? Pretty straightforward one to me. You want to prioritise children's safety. You can't have a play park in the middle of a construction site. So bring in Alderman Kennedy.
Hey, thank you, Chair. You just reiterated what I was about to say there. It's a no-brainer there to close that down to get the parking all up and running. So it's a good sought after area. It was really, really a good development. So I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Really agree. Okay, I don't see any other lights on our hands up, members, in discussion phase. We'll move into decision phase. Any proposals on this one, members? Alderman Candy.
Happy enough to propose the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Flaherty.
Yes, Chair, happy to second. This is inherently fair and sensible approach by the developer.
Okay, members, a proposal from Alderman Candy, second by Councillor Flaherty, that we approve the officer recommendation. Any other views or proposals, members? Not seeing any other hands up or lights on. Okay, members, all happy to agree. Okay, members, are all agreed on that one. And thank you, Jenny, for taking time to come to the committee. Hope you have a nice evening. Okay, members, we will play on with an Appendix 12. Application number LA08 2024/083/F. It's one from ABC Council. We'll hand over to Nicola Craney, Senior Planning Officer, to present the PowerPoint and presentation. Okay, Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks, This application seeks planning permission for the erection of a Northern Ireland Centennial Stone in Portadown. The stone is to be polished granite and might be placed adjacent to a bench in front of St Mark's Church and the War Memorial. The application is being presented to committee as its council is the applicant. Officers have assessed the proposal against the development plan, all the relevant planning policies as set out in detail in the report. Officers are of the view that the proposal is acceptable in principle. The impact of the proposed Centennial Stone on townscape amenity and built heritage has been fully assessed. There are no third-party representations received, and officers are recommending the planning permission is granted. And I'll just go through the presentation. Next slide. Just this, the site is in the middle of Portadown Town Centre. Next slide. That's just an aerial view. Next slide. Site location plan. Next slide. Just the detailed proposed layout plan. Next slide. You actually can see the Centennial Stone immediately beside the bench in position, just a photograph illustrating it. Next slide. This is the proposed stone. Next slide. And just the location of the proposed stone at the bench. I think that concludes the presentation. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Nicola. Members, no representations in this committee. Do you have any questions or queries? Councillor Flaherty.
think I didn't know how to use this. I do have one question, maybe I just missed this, but I have a slight concern about the siting of this stone. How was the site actually chosen, particularly beside that bench? One of my concerns is, for example, I know obviously a Portland councillor, but I know the plaza quite well. And on occasion, and it's becoming more frequent, the street furniture, i.e. that bench, will be removed by our estates team to clear that plaza. So last weekend would have been one occasion. So on occasion, that bench is going to be removed and we're going to have this monument or stone sitting up. I'm really can't understand where that has been taken into consideration and when there's other places around that plaza that it could have been placed.
As planning officers, we only assess what's presented to us. This is the site which the council regeneration team specified in the planning application. I wasn't made aware of the fact that the bench is removed on occasion. This is the first this has been raised, and this may be something which members want me to look at further because we haven't had that identified just to date. Sorry, road service had also commented on it and not raised that issue, so we weren't aware of that potential.
Thank you, Nicola. I suppose it's a great worth exploring. I don't know if we want to take a decision on it all night based off of that. If sitting there on its own. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Although obviously I don't represent Portadown, but I'll echo Councillor Flaherty's opinion. Not only just with the bench removal, it's a strange location, sitting just at the end of a bench for a centenary stone. I think if you probably tried to pick a worse place, you couldn't do it. You know, it doesn't make logical sense. Even looking at the pictures of it, you know, why would you even consider putting it there? But that's, you know, that's my opinion. But I concur with Councillor Flaherty's concerns as well. You know.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. It's a bit of a tricky one. I think there's some queries worth considering. I don't know if members want to maybe take a decision on this and then have to do a fresh application, or whether just defer it based on the issues raised. But obviously that'll be a decision when we come to decision phase. Is there any questions or queries here? No questions or queries. We'll move into the debate stage. Well, a couple of big queries there. We don't want to take a decision and have to go into two applications. So, you know, based on what Councillor Flaherty says, I think probably need to defer it, but I don't know what other members are thinking. Any other lights on there? Okay, members, we'll move into decision phase. Does anyone have any proposals or anything on this one, just given that information that's come to light? Councillor Flaherty. On Nicola's looking and back in. Nicola, just bring in.
I just wanted to say, in terms of planning policy, I mean, it complies with planning policy, but it's whether the council want to implement that permission is really up to them. So that's something that members may wish to consider.
Thank you, Nicola. Eamon, do you want to come in and clarify?
Yeah, sure. Look, I suppose my opinion would be better to defer it for additional information, because look, if the permission's granted, and then a decision's taken that they want to position it somewhere else, it would mean a new application coming in. So maybe the opportunity to defer it and explore why this location has been chosen and so on, and then we can bring it back to members. Maybe I could suggest that as a way forward.
Thank you, Damien. Okay, we'll move into decision phase here. Bringing you in, Councillor Flaherty.
My nerves anyway. Yes, Chair, thank you very much. If I may, can I please propose that we defer this application for some more information as to the site, the positioning of the site of this stone.
Thank you. Proposal on the floor there. I think Councillor Moutre, you were just in ahead of Councillor Wilson. If you want to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me in. Yes, Chair, I would concur with those views raised by Councillor Flaherty and Councillor Wilson. Just the position of it, it seems as though it's almost obscured. It's out of public view. So I think yes, we would be best just to defer that to allow some time to maybe refocus on that. And yes, I'd be happy to second that proposal made by Councillor Flaherty.
Thank you, Councillor Moutre. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for that, Chair. I was just basically to second Councillor Flaherty's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, my proposal from Councillor Flaherty, second by Councillor Moutre to defer the application based seeking further information on position and just regarding some of those issues raised by Councillor Flaherty. Any other proposals on the floor, members? Not seeing any other hands up or lights on. Are all agreed, members, on the deferral? Okay, members are all agreed. Thank you, Nicola. We're continuing with Appendix 13, application number 08/2024/0839/F. Again, it's another ABC Council application for a memorial stone. Hand over to Roisin this time.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as stated, this application seeks planning permission for the erection of a Northern Ireland Centennial stone in Rathfriland. The stone is to be polished granite and will be placed within an existing raised flower bed located in a pedestrian island to the north end of Church Square and facing onto Main Street. The application is being presented to committee as the council is the applicant. Officers have assessed the proposal against the development plan and all relevant planning policies, and as set out in the report, are of the view that the proposal is acceptable in principle. The impact of the proposed stone on townscape and the ATC, amenity and built heritage interests has been fully assessed and detailed in the report. No third-party representations have been received and officers are recommending the planning permission be granted. And again, I'll take you through the slides. And there we are, obviously just denoting that it's within the town of Rathfriland. And this is the aerial context of the site, so you can sort of see outlined in red where roughly where the stone's going to be located. And this is our site location plan, the site outlined in red. And it's just a close-up of the pedestrian island, and you probably can't see it, the black square is where they're proposing to locate the stone. And this is an illustration of where it will be. It'll be on a raised bed there. I don't know if you can see it in the photograph, just below the signage to Castlewell. These are just more details about the proposed stone in terms of size and scale and finishes. And the red square shows the proposed location. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Roisin. We have no representations on this one, members. Any questions or queries on this one? The roundabout doesn't get moved by any chance or anything? Okay, members, not seeing any lights on or anything at this stage. Move into discussion debate, members. Any views on this one, members? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Roisin, for the report. It's a far better location than our previous one. That's just really all my comments on this application. Thank you.
Okay, any other views on this one, member? Before we go into debate or decision phase, sorry. Seeing no other lights on our hands up, we'll move into decision phase. Any proposals on this one, members? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose we accept the recommendations. Thank you.
I think Alderman Kennedy, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy enough to second the officer's recommendation.
Okay, members, proposal from Councillor Wilson, second by Alderman Kennedy, to accept the officer's recommendation. Any other views or proposals, members? Not seeing any other lights on or hands up. Members are all agreed. All agreed, members. Okay, thank you, Roisin. Now back with Nicola, Appendix 14, which is 808/2024/0888/F, and it's another memorial stone from ABC Council. And hand over to Nicola Craney. Take us through this one. Over to yourself.
Again, this application seeks permission for a Northern Ireland Centennial stone in Dollingstown. Stones to be polished granite and will be placed within an existing pedestrian island, which is between the shops and Alfred Terrace. The application's been presented to committee as the council as the applicant. Officers have assessed the proposal against the development plan and all the relevant plan and policies and set out in detail in the report, and are of the view that the proposal is acceptable in principle. The impact of the proposed centennial stone on townscape amenity and built heritage has been fully considered. No third-party representations have been received, and officers are recommending that planning permission is granted. And I'll go through the presentation. Fine.
Oh, sorry, just I think the appendices in the presentations are just 13's 14 and 14's 13, I think, but just get that sort of just.
Yes, that's Dollingstown, and you can see the shops there to the right-hand side and Alfred Terrace there just to the left-hand side, and the area is just marked in red. Next slide. This site location plan, next slide. Site layout plan, next slide. And this is the photograph illustrating the position just underneath one of the panels. Next slide. And this is the proposal in terms of the details and size. Next slide. And just a location of the proposal in terms of the streetscape and how it'll sit. And this concludes really the presentation.
Thank you, Nicola. Okay, we'll find Dollingstown there. Any question or queries, members, just on this one? Not seeing any hands up or lights on. Moving to debate stage. Any views on this one, members? Councillor Flaherty.
Probably going to ask a similar question, Chair. Again, how was the site of that isolated? How was that site isolated? Was it again by what did you tell me, regeneration time? It just seems like, again, seems like a strange sort of site for to be elevated the way it is. It doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Flaherty. I suppose it's like when you're in sport and you can only play the opposition in front of you, I suppose. So any other views on this application? Moving to the decision phase, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, just starting to get a habit of agreeing with Councillor Flaherty here, getting a bad habit. But it just seems a strange location too. You know, other people might think it's great, but just sort of looking at it on the presentation, it does look a bit strange. But maybe if you're out there, it maybe looks okay. But that's just my opinion, you know.
Site visit suggested there. We'll see what happens, but I suppose it's the application up before, so there's regeneration stuff there. It's whether you want to defer it or just go ahead with what the site's in for here. So don't have any more views on this. Moving into Moving into the decision phase, if there's any views on this, members? Could understand the fair and the other one just on that, the whole bench issue, and if, you know, it's sort of in the middle of the plaza and if it's on its own, you know, when all the equipment's moved, it'd be a bit strange, but seems to be other wee things here in this one, you know. Alderman Candy.
I think we'll go with offer's recommendation.
Proposal from Alderman Candy, accept the officer's recommendation. Any other views or? Councillor Wilson.
Apart from the concerns, I probably agree with Alderman Kennedy here. We'll accept the proposal and go ahead. Thank you. Happy to second.
Okay, I have a proposal from Alderman Candy, seconded by Councillor Wilson to accept the officer recommendation. Any other proposals on the floor, members? No other lights on or hands up? Okay, members all agreed on that one? Okay, members, we're all agreed. So members, there's no better place to end than Appendix 1. LO8 08 2021 0648/F. Members, this is a returning application. The only members who were in attendance at the site visit were Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Mulholland, Councillor Moutre, Councillor Dowd. Do you have any declarations of interest? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't on the committee when this was first presented, so I will sit this one out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Councillor Flaherty.
Likewise, sure, I wasn't on the committee when this first was presented, so I likes it.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. No, I wasn't in attendance at the site visit, so I'll be removing myself from this item. Thank you.
Alderman Wilson. Hold on, members. You're still there.
Yeah. And also, I wasn't at the site visit, so I'll be ruling myself out.
Candy.
Same story, Mr. Chair. I wasn't at the site visit either.
Okay, members. So with all those declarations, and I'd also be making a declaration, I wasn't at that site visit either, so wouldn't be willing to participate. That would mean members were down to two councillors, Councillor Moutre, Councillor Donnelly remaining, which means we are no longer quorum to be able to take a decision. So it looks, members, I think we'll just have to defer this application until such a time as we become quorum. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, it was just to let you know, I did receive a message from Councillor Mulholland. You probably got it as well. He tutors, and I think a tutor wasn't available, so he's had to stay a lot later, which has impacted his attendance.
Yeah, and Councillor Dow just had to step away, just due to personal circumstance there, and I don't know if she'd just be available just, and especially if we're already down, you need at least 4, and we're definitely down to 3, so there'd be no point asking Councillor O'Dowd to attend in that case. So Alderman Candy.
I was just saying along the lines. I said, you know, I said previous members didn't have to be at a site visit if they're happy enough. You know, this has probably been debated enough around the post, and it's up for recommendation. And if you're kicking the can down the road, it could be kicked down the road for quite a while to get the actual members on site that you need it. So do actually you have to everybody have been there to get this over the line, or what way does that work?
Thank you, Councillor or Alderman Candy. Do you want to bring in maybe Damien on this one to explain? I know I would certainly not be willing to take part based on that previous information. I know there's maybe been applications in the past where, say, members stepping off or between elections where applications have to be given again from the start and afresh, and that might be something we'll maybe have to do next time. If in order to get sort of a quorum, sorry. Councillor Donnelly, see your light on.
As far as I can remember, thank you, Chair. As far as I can remember, only to determine the parking spaces, wasn't it? That's the reason for the site meeting.
I think most recently it was deferred for a road traffic assessment to be brought back, was the most recent deferral reason. From what from what I recall, I know Councillor Moutray, you were maybe chairing it at that time. Come in and provide some clarity on that maybe, but. Yeah, sir, Councillor Moutray, okay?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's been deferred a few times. I think that the site visit, initially it was proposed, I think it was by myself, and that was specifically just to look at the parking situation, and specifically with regard to concerns about congestion and about road safety. So it was, well, for those two reasons really, to look at the parking due to concerns raised about the parking survey, which was quite dated. I think it was about 3 or 4 years old. And then, yes, at that same time, there was a road safety assessment requested, and then additional information was requested from the PSNI as well. So that's all the information I can provide.
No worries. I'm just going to suggest maybe just go into legal, get some legal advice on it. I'd be willing to propose that we'll go into legal to get that legal advice. If there be someone willing to second that, second by Councillor Wilson. Just give me a wee second to get that. Okay, members and online viewers, in accordance with that one there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'm going to move all those members and public and councillors who are attending the Plan Regulatory Service via Zoom to Zoom meeting room. Those using dial-in service will be placed on hold. Anyone in attendance in the chamber will be asked to leave the room to enable the committee to obtain legal advice from its legal advisor. Any member of the committee has spoken as a supporter or objector to the application under consideration will also be asked to leave the room. The advice presided will only relate to legal matters, and no discussion of the merits of the plan application now before us will take place until the public element of the meeting resumes and you've been moved back into the meeting room or taken off hold. Any legal advice provided is confidential, and all members of the committee who remain are obliged to preserve like confidentiality, and the official will remit all those required to leave the room, and those on Zoom will be readmitted to the meeting once provision of legal advice is concluded. Thank you. Could I just ask ICT to turn off the live feed? Is that a confidential business, sir? Right, okay, members, out of confidential business. So as I said before, members, we're down to two members, just Councillor Moutre, Councillor Donnelly. Based on our standard and orders here, oh, you in? No. Oh, so yeah, so just based on standing orders here, number 9, I'm going and looking into standing order 9, subsection 2. If during a meeting the presiding chair, after a number of members present, as council declares that a meeting is in court and is unlikely that there will be a quorum present within a reasonable time, she may declare the meeting adjourned. And then under section 3, that business would just be convened at the next suitable meeting, which would be the next planning committee meeting in November. So members, as we're down to just the 2 members, we are in court on this application. Therefore, it's just proposed that we defer that application to the November meeting, and hopefully the 4 members can be in attendance. And if not, then a decision might have to be able to taken to represent as fresh that application. Councillor Donnelly.
Thanks, Chair. What happens if 4 members aren't here the next meeting?
I think that would be a scenario when we just have to, if that's the case, I don't know what other members will be thinking, but if that's the case at the next meeting, I would be considering that it should just be presented afresh, because we need to make a decision. So
Could be there at 4 o'clock on the next meeting. They could either say yeah or nay, so you know whether it can go on the agenda or not. If they were brought it before that time.
Yeah, I'm sure Democratic Services will endeavour to get the best time for it while it's at the first, and hopefully, like today, was Appendix 1 on the application. So, okay, members, we're just all Councillor Donnelly.
Thanks, Chair. Do you know the date of the next meeting?
First Wednesday of the month, Chair, or Councillor Donnelly. 6th of November. Councillor Donnelly saying he might be wet. So we'll okay, members, we'll aim to get that as the next possible meeting. And if officers think that it may be difficult to assemble that quorum before, we'll just have to present it afresh, and if we know that in advance, we'll do that in the November meeting. Okay, members, I'll just be willing to propose that as we're not, I'm in the chair and we're not quorate. If do we need a seconder? We don't actually need a seconder, it's just we're in court. Okay, members, now we're finished Appendix 1, so that's everything. So we're back court, and now we're finishing the meeting. Okay, members, so hope you all have a very safe night way home. Thanks to the ICT team, thanks to planning officers, thanks to Democratic Services, thanks to their legal advice, both internal and external. Thanks for everyone who was watching, and wish us all well.